They joked at the start about how unbelievable it was that of all things his name could be attached to. People were saying he had worn a bear costume in Happy Gilmore too, specifically in the scene where honey was smeared on a character, and he laughed while firmly denying it, explaining that rumors like this had become running gags between them, the kind of thing one would send to the other with a sarcastic, "Hey, did you hear I was the bear?" In the same way someone might casually claim they had just bought a house in Lake Como, and he said at the stage of life they were used to people imagining the most random scenarios about them. So when he heard such a rumor, he could only laugh and say of course people thought that. And though completely untrue, he admitted he felt oddly honored because he had adored that film for years, watching it repeatedly, and whoever had actually been inside the bear suit had done an outstanding job. Their performance, so committed it deserved to be called exquisite. Then he shifted to praise the way Bad Bunny had lit up the screen, saying that in that movie he had been utterly delightful and his comedic timing had been shockingly sharp, especially in the moment where his character Oscar responded to his brother being hit by a golf ball when the camera zoomed in on his face after everyone shouted, "Who did that?" And the look he gave was so unexpectedly funny that he, watching at home, could not believe how well it worked, replaying the scene 5 times because it was that good. And he said Benito really killed it, managing to be hilarious yet also deeply human, and he admitted he even felt emotional toward the character, to the point he found himself excited at the thought of visiting Oscar's fictional restaurant, almost forgetting for a moment that it wasn't real, because the performance had been that convincing. Then the discussion turned toward the tour and the unusual decision to arrive at the stage hidden inside what looked like a cleaning cart, and when asked whose idea that was, she immediately claimed it, saying it was exactly her kind of strange idea, explaining that with the first show of such a huge tour, she wasn't only singing to those in the stadium, but also to the entire internet, since moments from opening night would instantly be filmed and shared worldwide. So she wanted to carefully preserve the imagery of the first reveal, refusing to let fans seated behind the stage spoil what outfit she wore before the lights went up, because if they had filmed her walking to the stage, the whole surprise would have been ruined. So she came up with the card as a way to sneak in unseen, ensuring the first thing people saw wasn't a blurry backstage clip, but the dramatic unveiling of the first era lover, accompanied by the glowing Versace bodysuit sparkling under the lights, a sight she loved so much she wanted it to remain magical. And although she had first planned to do it only on opening night, she admitted she became attached to the ritual, enjoying the absurdity of crawling into a disguise cart, calling it the perfect intro, because there was a mischievous side of her that liked sneaking around even when everyone obviously knew, and the fans seemed to love it too, laughing at the weirdness and embracing her eccentricity. So she leaned into it, joking that if you can't find joy in silly stunts like pretending a mop cart is a secret vehicle, then with all the stress involved you're doing it wrong. And she insisted those little hijinks mattered, because surprising the audience was her obsession, even though fans often tried to predict her every move. But when she managed to genuinely shock them, the payoff made all the planning worthwhile, since entertainment was about building worlds and giving people an escape. And she even confessed she had hoped nobody expected an album announcement on that very podcast, because catching people off guard was part of the thrill, and that, if they accomplished such surprises, then they had succeeded in creating real moments. And right there she teased the listeners with the idea that anything could happen. So better subscribe now, or you might miss the next surprise. After which the conversation shifted gears when he asked about her welcome to the NFL moment, and she didn't hesitate, saying it had been the first time she ever stepped onto the field, which happened right after the AFC Championship was won in Baltimore, recalling that season vividly because she had been in the suite with the family when the victory was sealed, everyone screaming and celebrating, and suddenly his mother turned to her and said, "All right, let's go down to the field." And she was stunned, asking what she meant, because they had never talked about such a plan, and she worried whether showing up uninvited might look presumptuous, but his mom reassured her, saying she knew he would want her there, and trusting that maternal certainty, she followed, walking out into blinding lights and deafening noise, overwhelmed by the sight of endless cameras and media swarming, realizing in that instant that they were headed to the Super Bowl. And even though she had seen plenty of media in her career, she had never seen anything like that scale. And then the reporter spotted her face and rushed toward her, while he was off to the side screaming into a microphone with all his energy. as he always did when a mic was handed to him, and she stood there realizing that just 5 minutes earlier she hadn't known she would experience this, and yet suddenly she was part of it, and the memory became one of her most cherished, because she felt so proud watching him achieve something so monumental, proud to walk beside him in that euphoric storm, and she described it as magical, calling it indescribable to witness someone you love work so hard and finally see the payoff, underlining again and again in her mind, "You did it, you truly did. It." And then the podcast reached its most shocking moment yet when Jason, always mischievous, teased his brother about whether he had found a quiet retreat or was still flying around with Taylor, and while the audience laughed, Travis looked at her with a knowing smile, and she, as a surprise guest, took his hand and openly admitted they had found a place, saying Lake Como would become their second home. And that simple statement transformed the podcast from casual banter to global headline, with Jason bursting into laughter and joking that his brother had suddenly become a European gentleman, warning him not to bring Kansas City habits to Italy, which made the whole studio laugh, and Travis confirmed it seriously, announcing that they had indeed bought a villa on the lake, a home where they could rest, recharge, and welcome family and friends, and soon details spilled out describing the marvelous property, a residence right on the water, framed by lush gardens and towering mountains, embodying both traditional Italian architecture with its marble floors, high ceilings, and sweeping balconies, and modern amenities designed for comfort, containing multiple living rooms, a private library, a music room, and even a studio dedicated to her songwriting, where she could craft new material while overlooking the lake. And he was especially enthusiastic about the wine cellar and the outdoor terrace where he envisioned hosting barbecues, while the villa's private marina meant they could slip onto the water in classic wooden boats, an image fans could already picture as iconic, and experts value the estate at $20 to $25 million, a staggering figure but fitting for a couple of their stature, cementing them as one of the most powerful pairings in both Hollywood and the NFL. And as soon as the podcast aired, phrases like Lake Como and Kelce Swift Villa surged to the top of Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, fans flooding social media with ecstatic comments, many romanticizing the thought of her writing songs inspired by the lake as he rode nearby, calling it true love, and with Lake Como already famous as a destination for romance, the idea of them living there elevated its legend further, and speculation exploded about whether a wedding might happen on those very shores, with people half joking, half hoping that soon bells would ring above the villa. And as the buzz spread, their story became more than gossip, it became a symbol of how two worlds, music and football, could merge into a shared narrative, and through it all they laughed, teased, and told stories that revealed the playful, human side behind the headlines, making fans feel closer than ever and reminding everyone that sometimes the best chapters are the ones nobody saw coming. So stay tuned and hit subscribe, because the next twist in this story could drop when nobody expects it.